so good to see you again. My name's Melissa. I go by Stitching Liz on YouTube and on Instagram. And I am back for my second video. I'm really excited to be back. I received such a warm response to my first video, so I want to say thank you so much to everyone who watched and commented and liked and subscribed to my first video. It really means so much to me, and I'm sure you all understand that the feedback that you get makes you feel so welcome into the community, and it kind of spurs you on to want to become more involved in the future. So that's why I'm back. I want to keep talking to you guys and hearing what you have to say. I love watching your videos, so thank you so much for welcoming me. What I'd like to do today is a finish parade. I saw Jessica, the schoolhouse stitcher, do her finish parade, and I wanted to do one too. I have, you know, Kay's cross stitch, she calls it a box of shame. I have a box of shame also, where I keep most of my finished pieces. I have stitched and given away 5 fully finished pieces, or 6. I think 6 fully finished pieces. But in my house, I only have 4 fully finished objects. 1, 2, 3, 4 fully finished objects. So most of my finishes are just in a Rubbermaid type scrapbooking box, plastic box to keep them safe. So I wanted to bring them out and remember what I loved about them and show you some of my firsts. As I said in my first video, I've only been stitching since 2015, so you'll notice that I started from the very beginning, and I used a child's kit that I'll show you right away when we get started. So the first kit I want to show you, though, the first thing is a fully finished object, and it is a stamped kit because I started doing stamped kits when I first began cross stitching. This is the second kit I ever did, and it's this. This pig. It says, "A thing of beauty is a joy forever," and he's looking up at the butterfly. He looks like he's enjoying himself. I know there's a little bit of glare because the glass is in this frame. I love the color of this frame. This was a stamped kit, so the blue and the sky is all stamped on, and there were blended threads in this. There was satin stitch for the butterfly, twisted stem stitch is what it was called, stem stitch for the outlining. So this one I learned a lot doing, even though it was a stamped kit. I just didn't learn about counting from it, even though it's a good size. I just didn't learn about counting. So you see, I took a step back and did something a lot simpler when I started doing counted cross stitch. So that was my second project. And oh, you know what I wanted to mention? I just wanted to mention that I'm trying something new with the technology to try and get rid of those black bars. And I turned my phone on its side, but that means that the camera is over here and the screen is over here. So if I look at the screen where I can see myself and see what's going on, I'm not looking at you. So I'm doing my best to look at you and not at myself, but it's a little tricky, as I'm sure you know. I'm really learning a lot by doing these videos, so thank you for bearing with me as I learn. So my first counted cross stitch was a cupcake, and it was a child's kit, and this is it. I think I mentioned in my first video that I destroyed the edges when I tried to fully finish it, and that is the truth. They frayed so badly that they frayed down to right at the edge of the cross stitch. And so I did my best to just sew up the edges so that they wouldn't fray anymore, and then I was afraid to touch it ever again because I didn't want it to get completely destroyed. So it's a cupcake that says sweet, and I think it is sweet. It's on 11 count Aida, so the stitches look gigantic. But it really is addictive. I thought it wasn't as hard as I imagined it to be to do counted cross stitch. And I enjoyed it, so I kept doing it, and you'll see some of the things that I kept doing. So I wanted to show you my first thing that I ever kitted up myself, and it is fully finished. It's this here. It's a no-sew standing cube, and this was from a book that I got at the library, and I think the book was called Cross Stitch Graffiti or Stitching Graffiti, something like that. And I saw the pattern in the book. I got really excited about it, and I decided I needed to do it. So I ran to Michael's and I picked out this fabric, which is an 18 count Aida, and I found all the threads. They were all there, and I started stitching immediately. And this was a fun one to stitch. I really like doing all these colors because there's so many purples and I love purple. So the stitches are nice and tiny because it's 18 count, which that was new. That was pretty interesting. And I finished it into this no-sew cube. I used a blue, that's not blue, that's purple. I used a purple ribbon that I made a bow at the top, and this is the fabric I put on the back. Again, more purple. And I even made those little feet that you use pins and beads to make. So this stands on my my shelf where I keep my cross stitch stuff. So I keep it there. And I like looking at that one. It really is, it makes me happy to remember the excitement I had when I was first kitting it up. So to keep on track with firsts, I've mentioned before that I really prefer to stitch on Aida at this point because I find linen and even weave a challenge. But I wanted to try it because I wanted to know what it was like to stitch on even weave and linen. I needed to try it to find out if I liked it. So I found this even weave in Michael's that was in a tube that I believe was Charles Craft, and it said even weave, but it was called Irish linen. And I think it is more like a linen because it does have slubs. And the project I did came from the Reader's Digest Big Book of Cross Stitch, and it's one color. It's this tile with these birds. And this is that Irish linen. I found this challenging to do. Not impossible, but challenging. It definitely required more counting, more attention to the counting than the Aida. But it was a rather small project, obviously, so it was doable. And I really loved this color DMC. I think this is DMC 798, and I loved the color, so it was really enjoyable to work on. So, I have done many kits since I started because they seem easier to put together. You don't have to pick out your fabric, you don't have to pick out your floss. The directions are there. So I went to Joann's and I found a kit that was by Joan Elliott. Now, Designworks is the company that assembles the kit, I believe, but the design itself was by Joan Elliott, and I had heard the name Joan Elliott from you guys on Flosstube, and I was like, wow, I get to do a kit by somebody famous. So I was so excited. And I really enjoyed this kit. It's this one that says, "Lead me not into temptation, I already know the way," and has all of these delicious treats over here. This border was very relaxing to stitch, very meditative. I didn't mind stitching that at all, but there was a ton of backstitch. Everything is backstitched, and that was something new to me, to have so much be backstitched. It really made everything stand out though, so I understand the value of it, and this project really showed the value of it. I like the font that she uses as well, so this was a fun project to do. Another project I want to show you is special to me because my mom bought the kit for me. It's a Dimensions kit that I'm sure you've seen before. It's a cat, and the sentiment underneath it says, "Hang in there." This is the finished project. I put it in this frame, which I got from Michael's, and I love the frame, and it's on a light blue Aida, which is a little bit hard to see here. I thought that this cat was so full of confetti when I stitched it. It was such a challenge for me. It was one of the hardest things I'd done when I did it, and I was so proud of it when I finished it. And I did not put glass in this frame, which of course means that dust is, you know, a culprit sometimes. It gets on there, the cat gets a little dusty. But I really enjoyed doing this, and it's so special. I look at it and I think of my mom because she bought me the kit, and I think of how much fun I had stitching it. It's really good memories looking at this one. I guess that's why we should really put out our cross stitch if they have good memories associated with them. Maybe more things should be fully finished so that we can have happy thoughts surrounding us in our cross stitch. I'll have to remember that. So another thing that I fully finished is this is the fourth thing, the last thing that I have fully finished, is this pillow. And it says, "My cat lets me live here," because I think that's the truth, is that my cat thinks this is his house, and that he lets me stay here. As long as I give him food, he lets me stay. This was really fun to stitch. I like the colors. There are these very bizarre bead things. 1, 2, 3. I have no idea what those are about, but since they were in the kit, I put them on there. It was also the first time I ever beaded anything, so I wanted to give that a try. They're kind of random though, which is okay. I finished this into a pillow, and I don't have a sewing machine, so I had to hand sew everything. The Aida is really helpful for hand sewing because you can follow a straight line. This is the fabric I chose for the back. My corners are definitely not Vonna corners, but I think, to be honest, if I wanted Vonna corners, I think I would have to get Vonna to do them, because I am not a finisher. I don't have those skills. I truly admire what Vonna does and what Priscilla does, and I look at them and I'm in awe, and I don't think I have it in me to be that creative and that meticulous. So that's why I have the bin of shame. But that's okay. I kind of stitch because I think it's fun to stitch. So I have a project that has Golden Girls on it. Here are my Golden Girls. I have an aunt who really likes this show, and I'm gonna give this to her. I just have to frame it. It's done on this Aida that has gold dust or gold thread woven in it. You can kind of see that. And there are the 4 ladies. Underneath it says, "Stay golden." So this cracks me up. Doing this project was such a joy because it was so fun to think of this show and stitch these ladies. The glasses on Sophia with her little purse. It was really a joy to stitch this one. And I really have to finish it so I can give it to somebody who would appreciate it, like my aunt. So, let's see. Oh, I have my Russian nesting dolls to show you. So, I stitched two Russian nesting dolls that came from patterns that I found on Etsy, and this one is the Book Lovers, and the book is in the middle. This was really a fun one to stitch, very relaxing because the big blocks of color were not hard to think about. This is on a fabric by LJ, and her sister, though, was the one that I just truly love stitching. She's the Punk nesting doll. She's got eyeshadow, lipstick, 3 shades of teal in her hair, that skull on her shirt. This is another fabric by LJ. And I'd like to frame this one so that the fabric shows, because I think they go well together. This one was really fun. I really like nesting dolls. I have a thing. So, let's see. Oh, I wanted to show you, if you have not checked out Ingleside Imaginarium, which is Brittany's store on Etsy, you definitely should. She has so many great patterns. And I found this one that she did called Live, Love, Laugh, and I just fell in love with it, so I stitched it. And this is what mine looks like. The original has bright colors as well, although I wound up substituting in flosses that I had. So if I saw that it was a green DMC, I found a green floss that I already had in my collection. So this one was really great to stitch. I highly recommend her store and her patterns. She's just lovely to deal with in general, and as I'm sure you've seen on her videos, she's just the loveliest person. So I highly recommend checking out her store because this pattern was really fun to stitch. So let's see. I have done a few Clouds Factory patterns, and I have 2 that I didn't give away. 2 were for me, and one of them is like a throwback to something from my childhood that I really enjoyed, and it's Heman and Shera. And it says, "By the power of Grayskull." This was so much fun to stitch. Again, this is another fabric by LJ. And I used DMC Metallic for the crown and DMC Metallic for the body armor on He-Man and in the sword. It wasn't easy to stitch with the metallics, but there's just not a lot of it, so it wasn't terribly difficult to do because there's just only a few stitches really. I have to admit, I think Clouds Factory people are really fun to stitch, and they stitch up so quickly that it's enjoyable. So that's my Heman and Shera. And the other one that I have for myself is the 2 lovebirds, Scarlett and Rhett. And this is another Fabrics by LJ. You're gonna hear that a lot, I guess. And the sentiment says, "After all, tomorrow is another day." I changed one thing in this. I don't know if you can see it, but I changed the eye color in Scarlet to green because that seemed more appropriate to the story. This one I love stitching. I like the heart that's up there above their heads. I would definitely do more of these if I found a couple that I liked. So another first for me was a Lizzie Kate first, and I stitched this one, Be Your Own Kind of Beautiful. I did not use the overdyed flosses for this. I substituted in colors that look similar from my collection. This was very quick to stitch. I finished it in a couple of days. And Steph from Pam and Steph just finished hers. Now, hers is done with overdyed flosses, I believe, And you can really see in hers how gorgeous it looks with the called for flosses. But I'm still really happy with the way mine turned out. And it still makes me really happy. I think this is a really nice saying for anybody. Be your own kind of beautiful. This is my Prairie Schooler Santa that I did last year. It's the 2015, I believe, and it says, "And to all a good night." And the reason I picked this one to do is because I love the teddy bear. Now this is done on the called for Davos cloth. I think that's how you say it, Davos, D-A-V-O-S. I guess it could be Davos. And I hated this cloth so much. I'm so embarrassed to admit it, but I hated it. It was, the stitches kept slipping, so I had to change the way I stitched to do like one over and then one over this way so that it was opposite the whole time. I'm sure there's a better way to do that, but I muddled through so that I could get this finish done in time for Christmas. But I don't think I would ever stitch on this fabric ever again. Although he turned out really cute though, right? But I don't like the fabric. And let's see. I have this really pretty flower that I stitched. This is one of my first projects too, that I kitted up on my own. And it's from that Reader's Digest Big Book of Cross Stitch. It's this flower. Now look at all those French knots. Do you see those? French knot city right there in the middle of the flower. This was really nice to stitch. I loved the colors, so I loved stitching it. It's all different shades of greens and purples, and that was it. And the black, of course. And I have my first stitch that I ever used variegated floss, and that's this. It's these cat silhouettes. I believe this was a pattern that I found in the Kindle store on Amazon from, I want to say the name of the company was Mother Bee. And it was originally charted to be just a black silhouette, but I decided to do the variegated flosses and experiment and see what they were like. So these are just DMC variegated flosses, and I just chose two colors I like to make the cats. And I was really happy with the way it turned out. It was fun to try these colors. I mean, talk about blocks of color stitching one stitch at a time. This really trained me well to do one stitch at a time. It was a lot of rows. And do you want to see something funny? So I did this project that I was really excited about the project, and I still love it. It was actually a triple LJ project. It was one that was charted by Lucas from Fabrics by LJ. I did it on a fabric that he dyed, and I used threads that he dyed to do it. But I made a very large mistake very far into one of the parts, and it did not turn out quite the way it was supposed to. So let me show it to you. You can see why I chose to do the chart. It's Defy Gravity, and it's on this really nice fabric that LJ did. The green and the purple flosses are the ones that are by LJ. And here's this hat, this witch's hat for Elphaba. Oh, if you don't know, Defy Gravity is from the song in Wicked that Elphaba sings. So there's this witch's hat. Now the first thing I did that was a little bit crazy was I decided that I would do the hat, I don't think you can see it, in black metallic and green metallic floss. So that's all black metallic, DMC metallic. So that was a challenge, because DMC metallic is a challenge, but I made a mistake somewhere in this hat in the counting, and it was so far into it with this really, really difficult thread to use that I just could not stomach frogging it out. So I tried to fudge it, and I ended up with this really bizarrely shaped hat. Let's just say I'll never be doing my own charting because I couldn't save this hat. The one that Lucas charted is very nice. Mine is very distorted. But in the end, if I hadn't mentioned it, you might have thought strange hat, but you wouldn't have known that it was a mistake. So I'm leaving this. I don't know if I'll frame it or how I'll finish it. But I love Wicked, so although I've never seen the show, I just have all the songs memorized from the CD. So I'm going to keep this the way it is, even though it's a little bit wrong. So we're getting down to the end of the pile. I have two tiny things to show you. One is a freebie that eventually I will finish into an ornament. This came with a magazine. Isn't it so cute? There was a lot of back stitching in this one too. But I liked this. And the other thing that's kind of small that I want to show you is the first and only completed Mill Hill kit that I've ever done. And this is what that looks like. It's the coin purse. You can see there's a treasure at the top and these strings of beads. There's a lot of beading on this one. I have not fully finished this yet. This was my first time doing beading except for that pillow I showed you with the 3 random beads, and I liked it. I didn't love it the way like I wouldn't seek out beading to do just beading, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, and I really liked the way it made this look, how sparkly and just different it makes it look. So that's my coin purse from Mill Hill. And I think I told you I've been working on the calendar girls for Clouds Factory. That's not right. Little House Needleworks. They're not even close. I don't know how I flip-flopped them. But Little House Needleworks. And so I started doing that series on this beige colored Ada, but what I realized is that in this series the girls have a lot of this cream color and they don't call for back stitching here, and you can see the cream is basically the same color as the fabric. So the first 2 I did on this fabric and did some back stitching to try and make the cream color stand out. So there's January and here's February. You can see I had to do a lot of back stitching here to outline the skirt and the hat. So I wasn't really happy with that, and I don't know if I'll keep them because I decided to change the fabric that I was working on. I had found this Misty Taupe Ada I mentioned, and so this is my March. Now this is a lower count Ada. This is 14. The other one was 18, so these girls are bigger. But this is March, April, May, and June. Look at all that purple. Look at that beehive. Look at that little bee. June so far is my favorite one. These are really fun to work on. If you like Little House Needleworks charts, you should totally try them because they're really fun. So we're getting down to my last, what I would call my 3 big finishes. 2 of them are recent and one is several months old. The one that's several months old is my favorite, so I'm saving it for last. So I'm going to show you 2 that I finished in August. One is by Tiny Modernist, a company on Etsy, and it's the Spring Sampler, and this is what it looks like. Those vines have a couple of colors of green, and there's a couple of shades of gray and a couple of shades of pink. There's 3 shades of pink. And this is done on a fabric that LJ did. It's the light blue mottled fabric to look like the sky, I think. This was one of the bigger projects I did, and I was really proud of finishing this one. I really like Tiny Modernist. You'll see my favorite finish is by Tiny Modernist as well. I also finished Wizardly by Fiddlesticks AU, and that's the There's No Place Like Home pattern. I did this on an opalescent fabric that's also dyed by LJ. I say that all the time because that's the fabric I have. I substituted in red metallic for the shoe and rainbow metallic for Toto's bow, but otherwise used the called for threads. And I was, again, this was one of the bigger projects I've done, so I was proud of this one also. I like that. And finally, the last finish I want to show you is a project called The Last Unicorn. It's done on black Aida, just from a tube that I got at Michael's, and it's by the Tiny Modernist on Etsy. And this is the project. I love this. This makes me so happy. I really need to fully finish this one so that I can look at it on my wall. I was really proud of finishing this one. And the black fabric wasn't that bad to work on. I think this is a 14 count Aida, so that of course helped because it was bigger, but it wasn't that hard to work on, and I really, really enjoyed working on this pattern, and I was really pleased with the finish. So that is the end of my finish parade. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, I hope to have many projects in my future. I have a couple of things that I will show you in my next update that I didn't include in this finish because the finish parade, because I wanted to save them to show you in my update. So I do have a couple of more finishes. That's a spoiler alert. And again, I want to say thank you so much to all of you for making me feel so welcome in this community, and for making your videos, because your videos, you know, they're a big part of what I do with my time when I'm stitching, and I feel like I get to know you, and I feel like you're my Flosstube friends. And so thank you for visiting with me, friends, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.